It has been one hell of a month for video game retail, and for most of us really. For anybody not following here, GameStop's share price started this month at just below $20. Since Wednesday, the lowest point it hit was $132, and the highest was $480. You put a percentage in that, and yes, that is some gains. Now this obviously is neither natural nor representative of GameStop's ability to shift games. The real reason is that GameStop has been chosen as the battlefield for an unprecedented financial war between the richest of Wall Street and the everyman, mainly shitposters on Reddit. If you let yourself get swept up in it, then you could think that this could very well be the battle to decide the future of the stock market as well as GameStop. If you're financially minded, then this was the perfect opportunity to either make or lose a very, very large sum of money. Either way, it's an incredible way to kick off 2021, as is our February loot. Yes, we revamped the Patreon loot in 2020, and if you're patron to us through this month, you'll get the shield pin. And that's a pin that goes real well with the sword pin that is headed your way right now from last month. Oh, and of course the art, but we're still making that, and we'll show it later. Patrons, thank you. Your support has been awesome, and it is letting us do a lot of big moves and big changes with how we do this channel. They're going to go really good into the future. Let's begin. So, what's going on? Why the hell is GameStop involved? And who's the dude who put 50 grand down in 2019 and could now sell it for millions but refuses to? Well, welcome to WallStreetBets. Back in July 2019, a user known as Deep Demonetizing Word Value, we'll just call him DFV, he did some fundamentals analysis on GameStop. And he figured, right, based on how business was going, that GameStop were actually worth a lot more money than the mere $4 they were trading for at the time. So what he did in response to this was he put 53 grand into call options, right? Now that basically, what he purchased gives him the right to buy a lot of shares of GameStop, in this case for $8 each, in January of 2020. Now, the way that this would work out, right? I mean, the way it has worked out is he's made a lot of money, but if it didn't work out, and if GameStop went to say $2 instead of $4, yes, he would have lost a hell of a lot of money. Such is options trading. Options trading is something that used to be very much for the establishment types, but nowadays it's a lot more accessible to your everyday person with apps like Robinhood. And it's extremely high risk, and if you don't already understand what options trading is doing, that pretty much means you shouldn't be doing it. So DFE shared his GameStop YOLO onto WallStreetBets, which is the subreddit that describes itself as if 4chan found a Bloomberg terminal. Now, over there in WallStreetBets, honestly, it's been my favorite subreddit for a long time. It's so much fun, but they make extremely, often dumb, chaotic financial moves. They turn thousands into millions and then lose it all again, all while laughing and having a blast. It's a very bizarre place. So yes, DFV's YOLO into GameStop fit the sub like a glove. Now, at the time, his investment was seen as crazy by some people, although he really was onto something, right? The new consoles were on their way. We didn't know there was going to be a global pandemic, and he did a lot of pretty damn good research. He's actually got an hour-long video on the topic, which you can watch. To follow up, right, he wasn't far off the mark with his analysis. The pandemic was obviously unprecedented, and it crushed retail, but it did help boost the games industry overall. And GameStop now gets a cut of revenue from digital sales on any of the Xboxes that they sell. So that's pretty good for GameStop's business. But also, they restructured their debt, and they had a change of leadership that were all seen as positive signs for the future. Anyway, he's already cashed out about $1 million, and then put 770 grand of it back into more options. During the Thursday high point, he was worth $48 million. But he held diamond hands. We're going to be relying heavily on WallStreetBets memes in this video. So here's a quick rundown of them. Diamond hands. That is when you're holding strong, even though the price is high, eternally holding for bigger tendies. Paper hands is being weak and selling early. Tendies are gains, or profits. To the moon is apparently where GameStop, Nokia, BlackBerry, AMC, and Dogecoin are going, and to Mars is where Daddy Elon is taking us with our YOLO'd GameStop tendies, as they would say. So there you go. That's the introduction, but man, there is so much more. Thanks to DFV's success leading up to this month, everyone had their eyes on GameStop, right? It was really popping off on the subreddit. One of the key parts of this puzzle, though, was a planned short sell, most notably by a hedge fund called Melvin Capital. And this is where the Melvins, our at least initial villain, enter the scene. So what they did is short selling, right? Now, short selling is basically just a way that if you think the price of a stock is going to go down, you can short sell that stock, such that you will earn money if it goes down. Now, there's a whole bunch of borrowing and stuff here. I'm not going to explain that, but the TLDR here, right, is that the process of short selling is a legal thing, but a controversial thing. A good example, Elon Musk, somebody who hates the short sellers. That's, of course, because the short sellers made many bets against Tesla, bets that, of course, they lost. Now, shorting is often done because there's a good reason to expect that the market is overvaluing a stock. But sometimes what can happen is that short interest can feed into its own narrative, and that itself can drop the price. Now, there are many sides to this. Many people would argue that short selling aids the market's price-finding ability, because at the end of the day, that's what the market is supposed to do. Find the true price of things. I mean, on paper. In reality, I think the market is actually a lot more people betting on direction, and it's getting a bit screwy. But point is, the idea of short selling is supposed to be that if something is fishy, you can make some money if you're right, and you bet against that company because you think they're being fishy. Now, if you follow vehicle stocks, right, then you may be aware of when short sellers inflicted a massive and likely quite well-deserved hit on Nikola Motors, where they seemed to be sort of lying about things. Their stock was going really good. A big research paper came out pointing out a whole bunch of issues with the founder, them, kind of like faking a video and stuff like that. And that caused the market to think, oh dear, Nikola Motors is trying to pull a fast one on us. Let's exit this stock. That led to the Nikola price collapsing, and of course the people who were shorting it making a lot of money. So that's one angle on shorting, exposing bad companies. But in the worst case, though, this can be a process where investors sort of collude to convince the market that a stock is overvalued and then profit massively from the downturn, of course at the expense of the company and other people in the market. Now, for Melvin Capital, GameStop turned out to be the wrong target because, boy, they are screwed. The average WallStreetBets user, you see, is a finance-savvy outsider who relishes risk. But most of all, they're a very online millennial-type person. Chaos, video games, they're the lifeblood of somewhere like that. Now, the old money, old boys club, decided that GameStop wasn't worth that much. WallStreetBets disagreed. So for them, it was an opportunity to profit at the expense of a hedge fund and protect GameStop. So for this, what they did is drove up the price of GameStop by buying it. And I would say as well, controlling a lot of sentiment around it. And that is such that when the short sellers are betting on the stock going down. So if the stock goes up, it's a huge loss. In their words, diamond hands until GameStop goes to the moon. But it wasn't going to be that easy, though. Now, a value of a share of a company, that is usually a combination of the company's profitability, general outlook, and a whole bunch of other things. But for right now, well, the value of GameStop's got nothing to do with it. This is financial warfare represented in a number. That number is GameStop's stock price. After all, something is only worth what somebody is willing to pay for it, and odd things are happening. Now, what WallStreetBets did is what we call a short squeeze. At its core, it is a function of supply and demand. People who hold know that the short sellers, are selling short, right? They don't sell. And the thing is that shorting a stock still does remove supply from the market. So if the shorts are removing supply from the market and then a whole bunch of people buy that stock, what's going to happen? Well, your prices are going to be going up and up and up. as long as people hold and keep on buying in. Of course, if you keep on buying in and you buy in at $400, you're kind of telling the market, yeah, we're willing to buy this at $400. So if they keep on staying diamond hands, technically, the price would continue to go up if they had enough sway. Now, what I would also say is there's a very, very high chance that while WallStreetBets is doing a lot of controlling the narrative and stuff here, what's also probably happening is that while Melvin Capital is going like this, there's probably a lot of other hedge funds that are trying to ride this wave to make a lot of money as well. So, yeah, some of the establishment will lose a bunch, some of the establishment will make a hell of a lot as well. And one thing that people are really drawing a comparison to here is the Volkswagen squeeze of 2008, where Volkswagen ended up being the most valuable even company in the world for a bit. So that's basically the rundown. What this has meant so far is that GameStop stock has been yo-yoing like crazy, and people are basically, some of them are diamond hands holding to the moon, and other people are cashing in and taking their profits. It started the month at $20. And even now, $150 seems low in comparison to some of the stock's recent numbers. And while it may not reach $10,000 like WallStreetBets are memeing, well, all bets are off. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? I didn't just end that segment by saying, who knows what's going to happen as a random thing. In some ways, we literally don't, because another thing has happened. Wall Street doesn't like retail traders complicating their system, especially when it's a bunch of Redditors squeezing their stocks so hard that a hedge fund needs bailing out. Melvin Capital, the first villains of our story, suffered massive losses on Wednesday morning, and they were bailed out to the tune of almost $3 billion. Now, the ruckus that WallStreetBets were causing around GameStop soon just had the whole world watching, and ultimately a lot of the world involved. I mean, that has been the most traded stock in the world for a bunch of days. This ended up becoming essentially class warfare between anyone with an internet connection, a easy brokerage account like Free Trade and Robinhood, and a few dollars. I guess them versus some of the established hedge funds. Now, for a period of time, the two top downloaded iOS apps in the USA were Robinhood, a retail stock trading app, and Reddit. WallStreetBets gained over 2 million users in the last week, and the trading volume of GameStop and a few of the other stocks that have been targeted, such as AMC, the theater chain, well, the trade volume has been absolutely unprecedented. Everyone was getting on board, basically. It's got so crazy that a few apps like Robinhood, Trading 212, and others just stopped letting people buy GameStop and a few of the other affected stocks. They only allowed them to reduce or to close out of their positions. So much for a free market, eh? Buying would increase the price. So that would basically force the short sellers to take higher losses. And then buying was disabled across most retail apps. A lot of people felt that was basically establishment collusion. Apparently, Robinhood stopped purchases after receiving advice from their hedge fund investors, Citadel, and there's some more fishiness there. I mean, there's a lot of fishiness about Robinhood's trading. Basically, Robinhood makes a lot of its money by selling trade flow information, which is all a little bit iffy, let's just say. And even the White House, reportedly, even the White House got involved in this. Now, Citadel and Robinhood were very quick to deny this, with Robinhood's CEO saying that they purely made their move to protect investors and ensure that rules were being followed. Look, at the end of the day, a group of people colluding to influence the price of a company clearly seems to be wrong, right? You know, except when it's a hedge fund worth billions who's trying to do it and short the stock at everybody else's expense. Because that's the thing. A lot of the establishment is furious at Reddit, thinks, they're doing all of these terrible things, when in reality, a lot of those hedge funds have been doing that stuff for years and years and years. It's just that they've had establishment protection. And of course, this discourse only emboldens people who've engaged with this story, right? It's just meant that more people are going to WallStreetBets and they're wanting to, go diamond hands to the moon. And big tech also got in it, because Robinhood's app was spammed with 1-star reviews for their behavior, but both Google and Apple stepped in to remove hundreds of thousands of reviews from their app stores, which does seem fishy, because those were negative reviews left by dissatisfied customers who are voicing their opinions over the decisions of the people who made the app. That surely seems like something that should be okay to be on an app store's review. So the optics are real bad, and to many it felt like the system and its incumbents were changing the rules to protect themselves and their friends. However, any wrongdoing here is entirely speculative, and until there is an investigation by the SEC or law enforcement, we can't say anything too harsh. We have to wait, and I guess in that case, let the pros take a look. But to be clear though, there's a lot of chatter of some very specific and very rich people facing jail time, so it'll be an interesting thing to follow. And it's interesting because unity against these hedge funds has even built a bit of a bridge across the political divide in the USA, where AOC, Ted Cruz, and Donald Jr. were basically all in agreement. Not that they are obviously people who are on good terms, but there was sentiment between all of them expressing that protecting the hedge funds at the expense of retail traders is a bad thing. Yeah, shenanigans. They're okay when the establishment does it. They're not okay when you do it. Kinda. That's basically the sentiment across the news, across social media, in the events or in the time following the events of last week. And I suppose, as GameStop's slogan goes, power to the players. As always, we live in extremely interesting times, don't we? It's really felt like a strange unifying moment online, with the target sort of painted on the man as a sort of villain story, right? It's just sticking it to the guy. That's what it's like. And I think that's a theme that you're going to be seeing recurring throughout the year. I think a lot of people want to stick it to the man. Now, as for any realistic outcome here, this is probably a flash in the pan. A lot of people will come out of this week as budding traders, and a chosen few will come out with life-saving amounts of tendies, life-changing even. I mean, Matt, who led the writing of this video, he's going to come out of this $300 richer. Yes. Lucky bastard, he picked up $20 of GameStop in December after reading about WallStreetBets stuff, and he's just made $300 clear profit. That said, he's not sold diamond hands to the moon or bust. Not exactly sure if I would make Matt's decision, but certainly if you got involved in the GameSpot stuff, well, let me know down below. I'd like to see what there were as WallStreetBets. Actually, no, I'll call it gain prawn and loss prawn. I'm not talking about prawns though, but you know what I mean. Certain words aren't exactly cool on the platform and the algorithm. I mean, there was this one kid in the US who was gifted a few shares 2 years ago as a token, and he just cashed them out for $3,200. Pretty nice payday for a kid. Now, as for what the stock market looks like, I think this might frighten some short sellers into rethinking, because if WallStreetBets can become this massive crowd-sourced avatar of vengeance seeking to squeeze them whenever they can be found, it might just rustle the jimmies, worry, put a bit of fear into the short sellers. Beyond that, there may be some legal changes to stop things like this happening again. We could see regulatory change. Likely, I'd say it'll be business as usual, and we'll just come out of this with a funny story to tell, and a lot of people having a lot more knowledge about stocks. What about video games? Yeah, there's no impact in video games. Yeah, there's none. It's not like GameSpot having so much more, market cap is going to mean they're going to be able to materialize a PS5 for you. In fact, in some ways, it could actually hurt GameStop, because the market is massively overvaluing them. Then that actually does have a whole bunch of implications for them. They may not necessarily be good. So there are some iffy things there, right? But I do imagine that their value should be corrected down to somewhere roughly near what fundamentals would say it's worth in the near future. But there you go. 4chan found a Bloomberg terminal, decided to make it a subreddit, and many years later, this has happened. Wow. This is, in some ways, it's in every way, it's one across the world, right? This is on Taiwan news. This is on everywhere. Everyone's talking about this. And I think a lot of that's because what happened? Well, if you went into the global pandemic with a bunch of cash in your pocket, you're not in a great situation right now. If you were already investing And, you know, I will admit I am somebody who falls into this category because basically one day I looked at the bank, I looked at my savings account, and I thought, well, I'm trying to save up for a house deposit and stuff, but what's the bank doing with the money I put in there? They're obviously investing it. Why don't I invest the money instead? Because the interest rate I was getting was next to nothing. I'm fairly sure my interest rate was actually such that, inflation would mean I'd be net losing money over time. So for anybody who got into the stock market, I did a little bit, which worked out quite well. A lot of people, though, have made a lot of money, and the establishment people have made a lot of money. All while small businesses have really felt a tight squeeze. So a lot of people have seen this, and they've seen, us, the regular people, well, a big pandemic happened, the stock market went soaring, we got screwed, and the rich people just got a whole bunch more capital. So I think that is really a big thing that is being expressed just across the board here. And it's just very funny that this is like a bit of a global phenomenon, and you track it all back. Where do you track it all back to? I mean, it's kind of like a bit of 4chan culture, a bit of Reddit culture, a bit of gaming culture. It's kind of funny that in so many ways, a bunch of us sort of changed the world a little bit here. I mean, hey, what did I do? I grew up, doing some mining in EVE Online, doing my auction house stuff in World of Warcraft. It's people, I was selling rune scimitars in Camelot when I was a kid. Me and my friend, we controlled a bit of the iron and coal supply chain in a little bit in RuneScape. We made all those arrows. We sold the arrows. A lot of us through the medium of video games have been learning about stuff like this for a long ass time. And I think it just shows that, a lot of people are getting to finance. They kind of bypass the whole establishment way of getting to it. And now it's having big spooky effects. That's the GameStop story. I hope you enjoyed this video, and especially for somebody who, kind of just thought, finance stuff, I don't know this, I've not been trained in this. I hope we were able to get the gist across to you so you can understand and appreciate these interesting times in which we live. That's it for me. If you would like to support the channel, well, here is last month's pin. Pretty damn sweet looking sword. It's a shield this month, so you can support us over there. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.